The final leg of my journey takes me into the Quebecan countryside. My first stop is the pilgrimage town of Sainte-Anne-de-Beaupre. Basilica Sainte-Anne-de-Beaupre is actually French for beautiful field. Originally was made by the first farmers, and it's actually one of the 8 national shrines of Canada, 4 of which are found right here in Quebec. Its origins date all the way back to the 1600s when a small chapel was built here, and the local legend says that miraculously the builder of the chapel was cured of his rheumatism, and ever since that point on, people have been coming here for pilgrimages. As many miracles have been attributed to this site, quickly turning it into the first unofficial pilgrimage site in North America. The first basilica was constructed in 1876, but the current basilica we see, however, was only completed in 1946. And that's because in 1922 the entire basilica burned down in a fire. Miraculously, the only thing that survived is that statue we see up there of Saint Anne and Baby Mary. We're so used to seeing statues of Mary and baby Jesus, but it's actually Anne and the Virgin Mary, because Saint Anne is actually the grandmother of Jesus and mother of Virgin Mary, and also the patron saint of sailors. Now there are several art pieces in this basilica that are of interest. Firstly, these mosaics, which display the journey of man from birth up until death, but are patterned after the devout life that God had intended for us. Secondly, these different designs on the pews that represent the various creations of God, mostly animals that are found in the region. Thirdly, these unique and ornate copper doors. And lastly, these crutches which have been left by pilgrims who have allegedly been healed here. Another man that was allegedly cured is a Vietnamese pilgrim who came here in the 70s. The story goes that he came here with a walker and left without a walker, but there's no evidence that he was actually cured. Maybe someone stole his walker, because that's all the story says. But there's no doubt that other miracles have genuinely taken place here, or at least people believe they have. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see something like this in North America. Sami to by tu dłużej pochodzimy. After the previous church was torn down to construct the basilica, this small memorial chapel was built in commemoration using parts of the original church, including the stones, decor, and steeple. The rooster weather vane atop the steeple symbolizes Peter's denial as a follower of Christ. This beautiful building you see behind me houses the Santa Scala, which means Holy Staircase. It was constructed in 1891. It's the first of its kind in North America, and it's actually a replica of the very stairs that Christ ascended on during the crucifixion when he was going to be executed by Pontius Pilate. The most famous replica is actually located in Rome, and inside you can actually see relics from different areas of the Holy Land. And according to tradition, you're actually supposed to climb them on your knees. Religion was by far France's biggest influence. Today, Quebec seems much more devout than other parts of Canada. The church is pretty modern, but still looks really beautiful. And the feast day is actually on July 26th. That's when the huge pilgrimage takes place. And that was actually the same festival we attended in Cusco. So that happened in late July, and there's tens of thousands of people that flock to this otherwise quiet little town.
Right, well, it was a high school, but if it was Franciscan Sisters Convent's also closed. They have to climb into the house. I can't see. He came up the river and said, "Wow, beautiful river. They got to give it a name." So he opened the Saint book there. It was St. Lawrence Day. You live in a church, you lead a good life there, and it might be a good spot for you in heaven. If you don't lead a good life, well, the courthouse, they'll find you a spot.
Very much welcome here. My name is Diane, and I'm one of the daughters of Mr. Gilles, who's the founder. As you can see, we work mainly with copper by the technique called the revoir, which means that 90% of the work is done from the back and bossed with fine tools. My dad was born in 1895 in France. He learned to do this at the age of 10 to 11 years old. He moved from France to work first in the States in 1927 as an interior decorator for big companies like GM, Chrysler, decorated their private homes, their buildings, and on the West Coast for movie studios and movie stars. When he came over to Canada in 1937, what was mainly vacant for churches. From Los Angeles to Sainte-Anne, you've been to Sainte-Anne-de-Beaupre. Yes. You've seen those nice big church doors at the main entrance. They were done by my dad.
These pieces were produced by Gilles using a combination of egg tempera, egg shell, and wrapping grass with copper. Today, female descendants of his family continue to produce and sell copper art, but in addition, this facility also doubles as a museum displaying some of the finest examples of copper art from around the world. The next leg of my tour takes me to the island of Orleans.
Ton arrière-arrière-grand-père, il a défriché la terre. Ton arrière-grand-père, il a labouré la terre. Et puis ton grand-père a rentabilisé la terre. Et puis ton père, il l'a vendu pour devenir fonctionnaire. Et puis toi, mon petit gars, tu sais plus ce que tu vas faire dans ton petit 3,5, ben trop cher, fret en hiver. Il te vient des envies de devenir propriétaire et tu rêves la nuit d'avoir ton petit lopin de terre. Ton arrière-arrière-grand-mère, elle a eu 14 enfants. Ton arrière-grand-mère en a eu quasiment autant. Et puis ta grand-mère en a eu 3, c'était suffisant. Puis ta mère en voulait pas, toi t'étais un accident.
Wow, this is nice. I've just crossed over the St. Lawrence River. I'm on the picturesque Ile de Orléans. Often described as the birthplace of French North America, it was one of the first regions to be colonized by farmers who came from northwest France, mainly Normandy. And today a large portion of French Canadians can trace their lineage to this island, which was first named Ile de Bascouze in 1535 by Jacques Cartier, due to its large abundance of wild grapes. It was later renamed in honor of the Duke of Orleans, and in recent years has been dubbed the food and wine capital of Quebec City. Today, the 75 square mile island is home to around 7,000 people in 6 villages, the most popular and prettiest of which being Sainte-Petronille, famous for its fine chocolate. Once one of the most impoverished regions in North America, today small businesses like this chocolate shop thrive thanks to none other than Alphonse Desjardins, who helped fight the cycle of poverty in French Canada through his credit firms. Raised in a poor family, he understood a key dilemma. Banks preferred to lend to large companies, resulting in a shortage of capital for farmers and small businesses struggling to expand. Thanks to him, the region's oldest industry survives to this day. Since the beginning, the island has been the region's agricultural epicenter, and in fact, during the 7 Years' War, British troops actually burned down the entire island in an attempt to basically starve the French to death. But in a sick twist of irony, they will also end up starving themselves. Yeah, you can tell which houses are older because they were built lower to the ground, and the poorer houses were smaller.
These are those summer homes that I was talking about on our left. They're a couple 100 years old. They've been upgraded. They're year-round homes now. They keep salt that they spread on the streets during the winter to melt the ice. They figured, it's just for the summer. They all build a wooden house. They didn't see the use of using stone like their year-round homes, 20 feet by 20 feet. It's quite rare you'll see one that small. But just had a whitewash kind of change colors on the house there. That's where the snow comes out in the winter. This is when you gotta shovel the windows and doors out and have sunlight in your house. From this point in North America, where you find a red oak tree.
My Quebecan adventure concludes at the spectacular Montmorency waterfall.
During the winter, that vapor turns into snow. It forms a huge mound of snow at the foot of the falls. They call it Sugarloaf.
Wow, it's absolutely spectacular. Right behind me is one of Quebec City's most famous attractions, by far the most famous natural attraction, the Montmorency waterfall. And it's actually located right on the eastern edge of the city limit. It's often nicknamed the Niagara of the Quebec, but believe it or not, this waterfall is actually about 100 feet higher than Niagara. This 276-foot high waterfall is named for a noble and viceroy of New France. The highest waterfall in Quebec and the 8th highest in Canada. The waterfall is actually Quebec's second most visited attraction after the Old Quarter. It's also here that in July of 1759, General James Wolfe set up camp during his campaign against the French. And the Duke of Kent chose to have his summer home. It was also the site of the first hydroelectric power plant in North America, and still today it produces nearly 100% renewable energy. And right next to it is a smaller waterfall called the Bridal Veil, named for a French bride who threw herself into the river when her husband failed to come home. There's the bridge linking Ile de Orleans to the mainland. Every weekday, dozens of teenagers must cross it, as the island has an elementary school but no high school.
Le plus beau jour que j'ai eu dans ma vie, c'est bien celui quand j'ai épousé ma fille. Le plus beau jour que j'ai eu dans ma vie, c'est bien celui quand j'ai épousé ma fille. J'étais nerveux, je faisais des folies, n'avais pas fermé l'œil de la nuit. C'était mon tirili, c'était mon tourlolo, c'était mon tour. C'était mon tirili, c'était mon tourlolo, c'était mon tour.
When I announced that I would be traveling to Quebec City, people told me I was making a huge mistake, that was a snobby, arrogant tourist trap. But I've always remembered an experience I had over 15 years ago in BC, when the only Quebecers I'd ever met invited my cousin and I to hang out at their campsite. And when a Quebecan lady generously offered to swap seats on the plane, and I failed to encounter a single rude airport official, I knew that none of what I was told would be true. However, I was wrong to speculate that the Quebecois were nothing like the French. The warm hospitality, politeness, humbleness, pride, resilience, and strong drive from all generations to preserve their history and culture were the same qualities I've always witnessed and admired in French people. Though the flags of France, Canada, Quebec, and their American allies all fly proudly next to each other, at the end of the day, it's French blood that flows through their veins. And as long as that remains true, the French culture will never perish here. When the British came, they told the French that they had no history here. They couldn't have been more wrong. Quebec exceeded all my expectations, and I am now convinced that the polite Canadian stereotype comes from the Quebecois, and the rest of Canada can learn a lot from them. The true beauty of Quebec City lies not in its architecture, but in its people, and the Quebecois may have just made Quebec City my new favorite city on earth.
Toute la journée, tout le monde s'est bien amusé. Il y avait de la bière, du scotch aussi, du brandy. Toute la journée, tout le monde s'est bien amusé. Il y avait de la bière, du scotch aussi, du brandy. Tout le monde venait embrasser ma bien-aimée. Moi je me disais, après la veillée, ce sera mon tourlili, ce sera mon tourlolo, ce sera mon tour. Ce sera mon tourlili, ce sera mon tourlolo, ce sera mon tour. J'avais bien hâte que la veillée soit finie, afin de pouvoir être seul avec ma vie.